Okay, I think I'm ready. I think today's the day. I think I'm ready. I think it's time. I think it's time. Let's open the game. Okay. Okay, I'm in. Squad, dynamics, tactics, team report, staff, training, medical, schedule competitions, scouting, transfers, club, vision, finances, dev center. Nope. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't. It's too much. Welcome to the FM Academy, where we will keep that from ever happening to you ever again. Hello, my name is Zealand here on the FMBase YouTube channel, and this is episode 3 of the FM Academy. So if you're somebody who likes to watch things in order to get a full understanding of everything, then I would recommend starting with episode 1. But if you like to jump into the middle, or you're just looking to round out your knowledge in certain areas, then by all means, starting here is perfectly fine. And who am I to tell you what to do? Stick around. For today's episode of the FM Academy, we are finally in the game, and we will be breaking down everything that is on the side panel, how you're going to be interacting with it, what you're going to need to know in order to, hey, I just got to follow on Twitch. If you want to do the same thing, you can follow me down below, the link, that is. It takes you somewhere else where you can hit the follow button. I stream Football Manager 4 days a week. I'd love to see you. This is basically just the steps you need to take to be able to enjoy the game, even if you're just coming to grips with a lot of its different intricacies. But first, you're going to be faced with this boardroom aesthetic. I want you to understand when you end up in this boardroom that it is mainly present for immersion purposes. There is nothing particularly meaningful that is going to happen here. You can stop and look at any of these different sections that the board is going to want to talk to you about, but really you can look at all of this information later on in the game. If you see anything that pops up to you in the whole boardroom experience that you don't understand, just come into my Discord, ask me a question about it. You can also, of course, come to the stream, or you can message me on Twitter, even Instagram. I'm going to link it all down below because a dude found me on Instagram, slid into my DMs and was like, sup. I was like, sup. Actually, he was kind of a nice guy. We talked for like 20 minutes, so you can do that if you want. Finally back in my corner. I know some of you are disappointed I didn't dive. We'll reserve that for special occasions. But it only took us 2.1 episodes to get into the actual game. But that's why this is your end-all be-all for getting into Football Manager and learning all the basics. So here we are, welcome to the game. And the longer you stare at it, I got to this point multiple times playing Football Manager. I might have even gotten through a match or two, but eventually this bar over here, over on the left, it can ruin your day, because you just feel like there's this wall of information and you know how to translate exactly none of it into helping you play this game. That will no longer be the case once you're done with this video. But first, there's something that bothers me and also bothers one of my mods, Isaac. So what we're going to do is I'm gonna flip this horizontally, so that it looks like I'm actually looking at the game. That's better, right? With that taken care of, we now go to our first section, the section called the inbox. Now, we've just come in, so we've got 8 new messages, and this is where all your information that you asked to be sent to you at different points during the game is going to come to you. And that's it. Moving on to the actual first one that you should look at when coming into the game. That is your squad panel. This is your team, which is kind of important. This rating, 1 out of 5 stars, is how good the player is in relation to the rest of your team. That's what you need to keep in mind. The other thing you need to keep in mind is that that rating is supplied by a member of your staff. You get to pick the person, and I'm going to show you where in like 2 minutes, but it's supplied by a member of your staff, which means it is not perfect. It's a great guideline. Excellent for saying this guy's good, this guy's bad. But if you got 2 good guys, stars might not necessarily tell you who should be the guy actually playing. The next one that I want you to be aware of is contract. Now, this is where you're going to see what their agreed playing time is. So normally one of the first things I'll do is come in here and sort by agreed playing time. That's just something you need to remember right off the top for the rest of your Football Manager career. Now, I mentioned there's just a million different ways to set this up. If you go to custom and then customize current view, you can, look at how many different player things that you can have listed. So go crazy. If you can think of something you want to know about your players, the players on your team, then you'll be able to find it in this list. And once you've taken stock of all these fine fellows that'll be helping you out, we need to look at the people that are going to be coaching them alongside you. And for that, we have to skip a few panels and go down to staff. Once you click on the staff section, you'll see a bunch of numbers. Obviously, I haven't changed a thing, but these numbers, 1 out of 1. Head coach, that's me. 2 out of 6 scouts. That second number is the limit according to the budget that your board has set for that number in the staff book. They've decided they can't afford more than that. You can bother your board and ask to have more scouts or coaches or whatever, but they've decided they can't have any more than that. So that's your line. But the people in this section can do everything from help the development of your players to find your next great player to just keeping your players healthy in the first place. This section is where the running of your team is dictated, and that's really why I've come here almost first. Because if you know how to set up this section and what to look for in different portions of your staff, you don't have to do anything else than what you've already seen. It sounds fairly mind-blowing, but it's true. But of course, you need to actually see staff responsibilities. So I'm going to go in there. Look at that. Doesn't that look fun? I would recommend this. Instead of looking at this incredibly ugly, it's not a very good UI. They redid it this year. I would recommend going to the different sections, not the overview, but go into these different sections. And when you get to something like staff, keep in mind that there are different little subsections. Advice and reports is where you actually get to pick the person that gives you those stars on your players in the squad screen, among other things. If the UI, they mess with the UI all the time, so if this is a future year and it's not FM20 and it looks different, that's okay. This is all still going to be there in some form. The advice and reports section is there, and giving me player reports, I get to pick who I want in that spot. You can get feedback from a bunch of different coaches on a bunch of different things. Feedback on loans, feedback on the development of your youth setup, feedback on potential transfers and contract negotiations. You get feedback on your tactics, your training, your coaching staff, and you even get to decide how often that feedback comes into you. But in order to decide who you want handling all this different stuff, you actually need to have a basic understanding of what coaches need in the first place. So prepare yourself for a whirlwind rundown. If you want to learn about staff in a more detailed way, I'm going to link a video up there so that you can watch it. And I'll also put it in the description so you can watch it when this video is done. But right on through, you've got your head coach, which is you, your assistant coach, which you can essentially task them with doing just about anything you want them to do. Your head of youth development, you're going to want somebody that has high reputation, that has the good ability to judge player potential. For your coaches, you're going to want to find ones that are particularly good at training. This is just because they are the ones that handle the training, and your training has 6 or 7 sections that we'll look at in the training section. Your general manager is essentially the guy that's capable of doing, or gal, that's capable of doing anything that you do. They can sign players for you, which is why you don't even have to worry about player acquisition if you don't want to. Your technical director is the person that's in charge of your staff. They give you reports on your staff, and they generally can manage your entire staff if you don't want to. I highly discourage you from doing that, but they are good to have to provide you reports. Your chief scout's the person that finalizes the reports from all of your other scouting staff. They need to be good. Adaptability is the weird thing that you might not consider they need to be good at. Your chief data analyst is the person that works like a chief scout for your data analysis core, and your data analysts are people that crunch numbers from around the world, and they'll give you reports in the scouting center, which we'll look at a little bit later, that will say, hey, this guy's 3rd most shots in the Brazilian 15th division. You might want to take a look at him. Loan manager manages loans, and then in the medical staff, it's all really straightforward. There's like one attribute that affects every single role there, physio or sports science. And you just want to make sure you get the best person in possible and hope they can speak the language and have decent discipline. You have the opportunity to add the staff for your youth teams too. And again, I would highly, highly recommend that, because I did a test in my Twitch save that I'm currently doing. And the test was, I'm going to let the computer, like the AI, my coaches, and the senior team sign the staff for my youth teams. What was that? And they signed the staff for the youth teams, but they only signed 3 of a potential 5, and the 3 that were there, 2 of them were completely useless. So the AI is terrible at signing coaches. They base it all off of reputation, which is a small part of a very large equation of what makes a good coach. Please, sign your own staff. And when you're signing your own staff, you can either go to the job center and place an advertisement. You click place advert, which is behind my fat head, so give me a second. See? It's right down there. Place advert, and then you can place an advertisement for youth positions, reserve team positions, first team positions, easy enough. Or you go into staff search, and then you go to FMBase and download my staff search filters from the website. I'll be sure to have those linked down below. Where is my face? There's my face. Oops. I will leave that in there. Yeah, we're not perfect. If you want to go on your own or you don't know how to find the staff filters that you just added to the game, you click new search and then you can go into a staff role, pick your staff role, and then you can load the filters up from down here. You can also, if you want to go through and highlight the attributes that you're going to be searching for, just immediately click pick the attributes and pick how high you want them to be. So you can highlight the key attribute roles from right here. Remember to check out that in-depth video if you want more information, but that's all we're going to talk about for staff here in this video, because I feel like that's all the basics, and it's a lot of basics, but those are all the basics to have an understanding of a massively important section. The next very important one that we are going to touch on, and the last very important one that we're going to talk about today, is player acquisition. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the scouting section on the left side, and this is where your scouting department will take over, led by your general manager and your chief scout. They will do as much or as little of this as you want them to do, and they're not nearly as bad at scouting on their own as they are at signing their own staff. So give the AI some credit. Basic understanding of what is involved in scouting, knowledge. Even if you load a database that has 120,000 players in it, your team is not aware of the existence of those 120,000 players. So they will not show up in your player searches. They will not show up in your scouting reports unless your scouts have to go out and find them. Now, your club knowledge comes from the knowledge of all of your coaches, of all of your scouts, and from the youth packages and senior packages that you buy for your scouting department. Those will be obvious when they come up for you, so I'm not going to go into that. But what we are going to go into today is how to get to your scouts. This is the entirety, apparently, of my scouting department. So I believe that I have control over this. Maybe? We had to go to staff responsibilities, scouting. Take control, baby. We need to do this ourselves just to get a feel for it. So back to assignments. And now we can take Mr. Tomasz Yerzbuski. We can right-click on him, and we can go to scouting and assignments, and then create an assignment. And it's surprisingly well hidden, honestly, but this is how you're going to send your scouts out to do things. And you don't have to know too much about what you're looking for, because there are presets. You go to player type and you say, I want to scout for a hot prospect. And then the only other thing you have to look at is your scope. And if you don't set a scope, they'll just scout the entire scouting range, which for most clubs that you're starting at as a beginner will be the entire world. That's a nice, easy task. Just scout the entire world. If you don't feel like doing that, then you just actually click on it, and you can scout individual leagues anywhere in the world. You can scout individual nations anywhere in the world. You can scout a bunch of different regions, and you can even scout entire continents if you want to. And then there's the duration here at the bottom. And in the duration, I typically, if I'm just looking for a hot prospect in a rather large area, will keep it ongoing. But if you want to do until finish, then they'll complete a report and send it to you, and they will be dormant until you tell them to do something else. It's also in this section that you can scout your opposition. If you're going to handle your own scouting, that's one thing you need. You'll have to get one scout that has good judging player ability, potential doesn't matter, and then tactical knowledge instead. And it won't tell you that when you're doing the normal sorting, but you just ongoing report on next opposition, start assignment, and they'll keep doing that until the cows come home. Then when it's done, it'll go through your chief scout, who will put together a beautiful, if I don't get lost, scouting center report, which is the thing we started on, where you have a bunch of options, a scouting report that gives you the basics, attributes, position, role, medical. Your scouts are very thorough. Now it's time to go through the rest of the sections. Starting from the top, we have our dynamics. This is going to show you the mood in the locker room. It's going to show you how well your team works together, how well they get along as you go through these different top tabs. You even have social groups and happiness and hierarchy. Generally, the team cohesion is going to be good if there's not a lot of turnover in the squad. You won't be able to do anything if you don't have any leadership support. And locker room atmosphere is very important. for a lot of reasons. I always say that I'm an okay tactical manager, but I pride myself on man management. And even though I do that, I still don't live in the dynamics screen. There is useful information in here, though. It's more important in your first year or two when you're still trying to win over the team and get them to play together. More just a tracking the progress thing. Tactics, yeah, we're not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole yet, but you do have a preset. You just whip out a preset tactic and roll from there. But I'd recommend checking out some of the other tactic videos we have around FMBase. This YouTube channel, I'll link one up there. I'm not quite sure which. Your next is your team report. This is normally where I'll come right away once I decide which of my coaching staff members has the highest judging player ability. I put them in charge of compiling a team depth chart by selecting them in the opinion of whatever. You look at your team depth chart, now you've got a basic tactic plugged in like a 4-4-2. You can mess around, and it will give you an idea of who should be starting at each position. After that, we have the training section. Now, it was overhauled 2 years ago, and it's really overwhelmed some people since then. And you don't have to manage it. The game does a pretty good job managing it on its own, but there are a couple of different pieces here. The first is mentoring. This is where you'll create a group, say attack, and you'll put a senior attacking player in there, and you'll put a couple of younger attacking players in there, and that senior attacking player will train with the younger players and help mentor them. And if that senior player is good and has high determination and a good personality, then he will have that rub off on the younger players to make them better. The next section's the coaches section, where if you hit edit coaching assignments, you can see all of the different sections that your coaches are responsible for. Now, this is where signing coaches comes in handy, and fortunately, partially hidden by my head, which I'll remove again, it highlights all of the attributes that you're going to need to be a good coach in all of these sections. So when you're signing coaches, just say, well, if I want to have a good coach in this spot, I need attacking, tactical, determination, discipline, motivating. Cool. Then there's the individual training section tab, where you can see the individual player training screen for everybody. This is a high level of detail that I'm not going to get into right now, and I would recommend putting the AI in charge of until you're more comfortable. But if you do want to poke around, I'll put a player traits training guide up in the top corner, and you can start there. The last section is the calendar. Now, you come into the calendar and you say, I want to add some different training in here today. I don't want to rest all day. Yeah, you click the empty spot. You can click any of the spots, and then you can make all the different changes that you want. Now, these are all the different trainings that you have, and you can spend your time to research these. And when you click on it, like click on possession, it'll tell you the attributes that are focused on in that training. You can generally infer what those attributes are, especially after watching the next video. You can make your educated decisions from there. So when you have some free time, you come in here and poke around, and you let the computer do most of it, like I do, and then you just come in and make some tweaks. Then you have your schedule. This can be formatted a bunch of different ways. You can look at it in the form of a calendar that tells you what's coming up. Everybody's favorite competition screen. The more competitions you get involved in, the more they take up this screen, and then the board gives you a nice expectation bar. Transfers, where you can track all your transfer activity. One huge helpful tidbit: hit hide inactive transfer deals. It helps you focus once you have a bunch of things flying in and out. There's also a transfer history up at the top, and you can go into clauses just to see when you have to pay that extra $5 million you promised somebody because this guy's about to play in 50 league matches. Pain is real. Next is the club info section. This is essentially what the board sent you initially. One of the few things that you're actually going to be interacting on in a regular basis with this screen is if you go to facilities, and you can see your training facilities are good and your youth facilities are good. You have the opportunity to ask for improvements in those once you go to Club Vision, where you see another part that was shown to us in the boardroom, and you can make board requests. Have a look around there and see what you might have to do in order to improve your youth facilities, for example. The next is your finances section. Always recommend coming back and having a check here every once in a while because your transfer budget and payroll are over here. And the last bit is the development center, which everybody was really excited about when it came out this year. This organizes your U18s, your reserve team. You can look at the staff for both of those if you're trying to decide what type of setup you need to accumulate your youth candidates or the people that are about to come in to your youth team. So you want to take a look at your U18, see these guys 15, 16 years old. We got some good players coming up. And back to the inbox for the end. That's a rundown of every section, as quick as you can possibly give a basic rundown of every section. Trust me, I tried to switch the script as much as possible. I'll see you guys soon. In the stream, in your dreams, wherever. I'm game.